I never imagined that a 2-week vacation to Italy would cost me everything I held dear. My name is Margaret Ellen Walsh, and I'm 61 years old. For the past 15 years, since my husband Thomas passed away from cancer, I've lived alone in the house where I grew up, a beautiful 1920s craftsman bungalow on Maple Street in Portland, Oregon. That house wasn't just property to me. It was where my parents brought me home as a newborn in 1964. It was where I took my first steps, where I learned to ride a bike in the driveway, where I had my first kiss on the front porch swing. It was where my mother taught me to bake in the sunny yellow kitchen, where my father and I built birdhouses in the garage every spring, where Thomas and I were married in the backyard under a canopy of white roses. When my parents passed away, Dad in 2008, Mom in 2010, they left the house to me and my younger daughter, Nicole. My older daughter, Patricia, had already received her inheritance early when Mom and Dad helped her buy a condo in Seattle back in 2005. It was all fair, all equal, all done with love and careful planning. Nicole and I had an understanding. I would live in the house for as long as I wanted, and when I eventually passed away or decided to move into assisted living, we'd sell it and split the proceeds. Nicole had her own life, her own career as a real estate agent, her own modern townhouse across town. She didn't need the house, and she seemed perfectly happy with the arrangement. Or so I thought. It was late June when I decided to take that trip to Italy. My best friend from nursing school, Diane, had been begging me for years to travel with her, and I'd always found excuses. Too expensive, too far, too much trouble. But Diane was persistent, and finally I thought, why not? I'm 61 years old, I'm healthy, I have savings, and life is short. Thomas always wanted to see Italy, and though he never got the chance, maybe I could experience it for both of us. I told Nicole about my plans over dinner at her favorite bistro downtown. She seemed enthusiastic, even excited for me. Mom, that's amazing. You deserve this. You've been taking care of everyone else your whole life. Dad, Grandma, and Grandpa, your patients at the hospital. It's time you did something for yourself. I'll only be gone 2 weeks, I said. June 15th through the 29th. Will you check on the house while I'm away? Water the plants, bring in the mail, that sort of thing? Of course, Mom. Don't worry about anything. Just go and have the time of your life. She hugged me tight that night, and I remember thinking how lucky I was to have such a caring daughter. Patricia, my older daughter, lived 3 hours away in Seattle with her husband and 2 teenagers, and we'd grown somewhat distant over the years. But Nicole and I had always been close. She called every week, stopped by frequently, remembered my birthday, and all the little holidays. She was my baby, my companion, my friend. I should have seen the signs. I should have questioned why she was suddenly so interested in the house's layout, why she'd been asking about the property boundaries, why she'd casually mentioned that the neighborhood was really heating up in the real estate market. But I trusted her. She was my daughter. Why would I question her motives? The trip to Italy was magical. Diane and I toured the Colosseum in Rome, rode gondolas in Venice, ate fresh pasta in Florence, and drank wine in Tuscany. I took hundreds of photos, sent postcards to friends, and for 2 glorious weeks, I felt young and free and unburdened by grief and routine. I thought about Thomas constantly, wishing he could see what I was seeing, but it was a sweet sadness rather than the sharp pain I'd carried for so long. I tried calling Nicole a few times during the trip, but she never answered. She'd text back hours later saying she was busy with work, with clients, with showings. I wasn't worried. Nicole was always busy. She was successful, ambitious, constantly on the move. I figured she'd catch up with me when I got home, and we'd look through all my photos together over coffee. I landed at Portland International Airport on the evening of June 29th, exhausted but happy, my suitcase full of Italian souvenirs, and my phone full of memories. Diane's husband picked us both up, and they dropped me off at my house around 9 o'clock at night. Except when we turned onto Maple Street, my house wasn't there. Have you ever had a moment where your brain simply cannot process what your eyes are seeing? Where reality becomes so impossible that you're convinced you must be dreaming, or sick, or losing your mind. That's what I felt as I stared at the empty lot where my childhood home had stood for nearly a century. There was nothing left. Not the house, not the garage, not the garden my mother had tended for 40 years, not the cherry tree my father planted when I was born. Just bare earth, tire tracks from heavy machinery, and piles of debris pushed to one corner of the property. In the dim light from the street lamps, I could see fragments of my life scattered in those piles. A piece of the blue bathroom tile, a section of the porch railing, shattered remnants of the stained glass window that had been in the front door. Margaret? Diane's voice sounded far away. Margaret, what? Where's your house? I couldn't speak. I opened the car door and walked toward the lot like a zombie, my legs moving without conscious thought. I stood at the edge of my property, and stared at the devastation. Someone had demolished my entire childhood. Someone had erased 95 years of history, of memories, of life. There must be some mistake, Diane was saying behind me. Maybe we're on the wrong street. Maybe. This is my house, I heard myself say. This is 847 Maple Street. This was my home. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and called Nicole. It rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. I called again, voicemail, again, voicemail. I called Patricia in Seattle. She answered on the second ring, her voice groggy. Mom, it's almost 10 o'clock. Is everything okay? Patricia, my house is gone. Someone demolished my house while I was in Italy. Did Nicole say anything to you? Do you know what happened? There was a long silence. What do you mean, demolished? I mean, it's not here, Patricia. I'm standing on an empty lot where my house, our house, used to be. Everything is gone. Everything. Oh my God. Mom, stay there. I'm coming down right now. I'll be there in 3 hours. Don't go anywhere. Don't do anything. Just wait for me. Diane insisted I come stay at her house that night. I couldn't anyway. I had no house to stay in. We drove to her place in silence, and I sat on her guest bed staring at my phone, calling Nicole over and over. No answer, no answer, no answer. At midnight, I finally got a text. Mom, I'm so sorry. We need to talk. I'll come by Diane's tomorrow morning. We need to talk. 4 words that confirmed my worst fear. Nicole knew. Nicole had something to do with this. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in Diane's guest room, scrolling through the photos on my phone, photos of my house, my garden, my life, photos I'd taken just 2 weeks ago before leaving for Italy, never imagining they'd be the last images I'd ever have of my home. Patricia arrived at 6 in the morning, having driven through the night. She looked as shell-shocked as I felt. Together, we went to Maple Street in the early morning light, and seeing the destruction in daylight was somehow even worse. You could see exactly where the foundation had been torn up, where the driveway used to be, where my mother's rose bushes had bloomed every summer for decades. How is this even legal? Patricia kept saying. You can't just demolish someone's house without permission. There are permits, inspections, notifications. Someone had to authorize this. Nicole arrived at 9 o'clock, driving her sleek silver Mercedes. She parked on the street and walked toward us slowly, her expression carefully neutral. She was wearing her real estate agent outfit, designer suit, perfect makeup, expensive heels, and she looked every inch the successful professional. She also looked like a stranger. Mom, she said. Patricia, I know you're upset. Upset? I heard my voice rising. Upset? Nicole, where's my house? Where's my home? She took a deep breath. Mom, I sold it. I sold the house, and the buyers wanted to tear it down and build new construction. It's a very desirable lot. And you sold it? Patricia interrupted. You sold Mom's house while she was out of the country without telling her? Are you insane? It's not just Mom's house, Nicole said defensively. It's my house, too. I'm on the deed. I have every legal right to sell my share of the property. Your share? I was shaking now. Nicole, that was our agreement. I live there. You inherit later. You can't just... Actually, Mom, I can. I talked to a lawyer. When two people own property jointly, either owner can force a sale through what's called a partition action. I filed the paperwork 3 months ago. You were served with legal notice, but you didn't respond, so the court granted the partition and authorized the sale. I was never served with anything. The process server said you were. He left the documents on your front porch on April 15th. April 15th? I'd been at Patricia's house in Seattle that week, helping with my granddaughter's birthday party. I hadn't been home. So you knew I wasn't there, I said slowly. You knew I was in Seattle with Patricia, and you had me served when I wouldn't be home to receive the documents. You planned this. Something flickered in Nicole's eyes. Guilt? Defiance? I didn't plan for you to be away. That was just timing. And the demolition? Patricia's voice was cold. When did you schedule that, Nicole? The buyers wanted to start construction immediately. They had the permits. They had the contractors lined up. I saw no reason to delay. No reason to delay? I was screaming now. I couldn't help it. I was in Italy. You knew I was in Italy for 2 weeks. You couldn't have waited 2 weeks for me to come home, to get my things, to say goodbye to the house where I was born. I didn't think you'd be this upset, Nicole said, and her voice had gone flat. It's just a house, Mom. It's old. It needed constant repairs, and the market value was incredible. We got $1.2 million for the lot. That's $600,000 for you, $600,000 for me. You can buy a nice condo, something modern and easy to maintain, and still have money left over. Just a house. She'd called it just a house. Where are my things? I asked. My furniture, my photos, my parents' belongings, Thomas's things. Where is everything that was inside that house? I put it all in storage. I have the unit number and the key for you. She pulled a small key and a piece of paper from her purse and held them out to me. I stared at them, unable to move, unable to process that my entire life had been reduced to a storage unit that I'd need to pay rent on every month. Patricia snatched the key from Nicole's hand. You are unbelievable. You're actually standing here acting like you did Mom a favor by selling her childhood home out from under her while she was on vacation, like you're the reasonable one in this situation. I am the reasonable one, Nicole snapped. And now I could see the real her, the one she'd been hiding behind the careful mask. Mom has been living in the past for 15 years. That house was a money pit and an anchor. She's 61 years old. She should be thinking about downsizing, about retirement, about practicality. Instead, she's been rattling around in a 4-bedroom house that she can't properly maintain, spending money on repairs, refusing to move forward with her life. It wasn't your decision to make, I said quietly. It was legally my decision. The law says, I don't care what the law says. I was shaking. You're my daughter. You're supposed to care about me, about what matters to me. You knew what that house meant to me and you destroyed it anyway. I didn't destroy it. The buyers demolished it. I just facilitated the sale. The casual cruelty of that statement took my breath away. I looked at this woman, this person I'd given birth to, raised, loved, sacrificed for, and I didn't recognize her. Who are you? I whispered. What happened to my daughter? For just a moment, Nicole's mask slipped, and I saw something ugly underneath. Resentment, bitterness, years of hidden anger. Your daughter grew up, Mom. Your daughter got tired of waiting for you to get over Dad's death and move on. Your daughter has her own life, her own needs, and yes, her own financial goals. That house was worth over $1 million, and it was just sitting there, rotting, while you played house in your memories. She turned and walked back to her Mercedes without another word. She drove away, and I stood there on the empty lot that used to be my home, feeling something inside me break and then immediately harden into something else. Rage. Pure, cold, focused rage. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you loved completely, someone you trusted with your whole heart, then you know this feeling. It's not the hot anger that fades quickly. It's the ice-cold fury that burns steady and drives you to action. Maybe you felt it too, and if you have, you understand why what I did next wasn't about revenge. It was about justice, about boundaries, about showing someone that actions have consequences. Patricia stayed with me for 3 days. We went to the storage unit Nicole had rented, a 10x20 space crammed full of my possessions, thrown in haphazardly with no care or organization. My mother's china was in a box marked Kitchen Misk. My wedding album was buried under a pile of winter coats. Thomas's ashes, his ashes, were sitting on a shelf next to boxes of old tax returns. I stood in that storage unit and cried for the first time since coming home. Patricia held me while I sobbed for everything I'd lost, everything Nicole had stolen from me, not just through legal manipulation, but through sheer callous disregard for my heart. "We'll sue her," Patricia said. "We'll find a lawyer, and we'll sue her for emotional distress, for fraud, for—" "No," I said, wiping my eyes. "A lawsuit will take years and cost a fortune, and even if we win, what do we get? Money? I don't want her money. I want her to understand what she did. I want her to feel a fraction of what I'm feeling right now." "Then what do you want to do?" I thought about it for a long moment. I want to know who bought my property. I want to know who's building on my family's land. It took some research, but we found out. The buyers were a couple named Brandon and Ashley Morrison, tech executives in their mid-30s who'd made a fortune in the startup world. They were building what the permits described as a modern luxury residence, a massive, ultra-contemporary house with floor-to-ceiling windows, multiple decks, and according to the architectural drawings Patricia managed to obtain from the city planning office, a design specifically meant to maximize the view of the neighborhood and the mountains in the distance. My property, my former property, sat on a slight rise on Maple Street. It was one of the highest points in the neighborhood, which was why my father had chosen it. On clear days, you could see Mount Hood from the backyard. The Morrisons' new house was designed to take full advantage of that elevation and that view. And that's when I had my idea. The lot directly next to my former property, 846 Maple Street, had been vacant for as long as I could remember. It belonged to an elderly man named Harold Chen, who'd owned it for investment purposes but never built on it. He lived in California and paid minimal property taxes on the empty lot, apparently content to just hold it. I called him. "Mr. Chen, my name is Margaret Walsh. I'm calling about your property on Maple Street in Portland. Are you interested in selling?" We negotiated for 2 weeks. Mr. Chen was in his 80s and liked the idea of finally liquidating the asset. I paid him $400,000 for the lot, less than the Morrisons paid for mine, because mine had the vintage house on it that added value. I used part of the $600,000 from the forced sale of my childhood home, and I took out a loan for the rest. Then I hired an architect. "I want you to design a wall," I told him, "a solid wall, 40 feet high, running the entire length of the property line between my lot and 847 Maple Street. I want it to be legal, up to code, and I want it to completely block the view from the house that's being built next door." The architect, a man in his 40s named James Rodriguez, looked at me carefully. "Ms. Walsh, are you sure about this? A 40-foot wall is going to be expensive to build, and it's going to be quite a statement." "I'm absolutely sure. Can you do it?" "I'll need to check the zoning regulations and height restrictions, but in this residential zone, I believe we can go up to 40 feet for a privacy structure as long as it meets certain setback requirements. It's unusual, but it should be legal. Then let's do it. Over the next month, while the Morrisons were excavating and laying the foundation for their dream house, I was getting permits and hiring contractors for my wall. I chose concrete, solid, permanent, impossible to see through. I had it designed with a slight architectural interest, so it wouldn't just be a flat surface, but it was fundamentally a barrier. A massive 40-foot tall barrier between my property and theirs. The Morrisons didn't notice what I was doing at first. They were too focused on their own construction. But when my contractor started pouring the concrete foundation for the wall, Brandon Morrison came over to my lot. "Excuse me," he called out. "What are you building here?" I was on site that day, supervising the work. I turned to face him. This young man in his expensive casual clothes, this person who'd bought my childhood home and destroyed it without a second thought. "I'm building a privacy wall," I said calmly. "How high is it going to be?" 40 feet. His face went pale. 40 feet. That's going to block our entire view. That's going to make our house feel like it's in a prison yard. "That's unfortunate," I said, "but it's my property, and I'm well within my legal rights to build a 40-foot structure here. I have all the necessary permits from the city." "You can't do this. We paid $1.2 million for that lot, specifically because of the elevation and the view. And I lived in the house on that lot for 61 years because it was my childhood home, my family's legacy, and the place where every important memory of my life happened. You demolished it without caring about any of that. Now I'm building a wall without caring about your view. Seems fair to me." He stared at me, and I watched understanding dawn on his face. "You're the previous owner, the daughter who was on the deed." "No," I said coldly. "I'm the mother who was betrayed by her daughter and lost everything. You're the buyer who chose not to ask any questions about where the family went or whether they wanted their home destroyed. You saw an opportunity for a good deal and a nice view, and you took it. Well, I'm taking something back." Brandon Morrison tried everything to stop the wall. He complained to the city. They confirmed all my permits were in order. He hired a lawyer who told him I was legally entitled to build on my own property. He came to my temporary apartment. I refused to see him. His wife, Ashley, showed up crying, begging me to reconsider. I closed the door in her face. The wall went up over 6 weeks. 40 feet of solid concrete, professionally constructed, perfectly legal, and absolutely impenetrable. It ran the entire length of the property line, completely blocking the western view from the Morrisons' lot. Their floor-to-ceiling windows, so carefully designed to capture the mountain views and the neighborhood vistas, now looked directly at a massive concrete wall. Nicole called me when the wall was about halfway complete. "Mom, what are you doing?" Brandon Morrison's lawyer called me, screaming about some wall you're building. "Are you seriously doing this?" "Yes," I said simply. "Why? To punish me? To be vindictive?" "No, Nicole. To establish a boundary. You taught me an important lesson about legal rights and property ownership. You taught me that family connections don't matter, that sentimental value is meaningless, that what matters is what you can legally do regardless of how it affects other people. I'm just applying that lesson. This is childish and petty. This is justice. You took my home, my history, my sense of security in the world. The Morrisons benefited from your betrayal. Now they get to live with the consequences. You're going to regret this, Mom. Everyone in the neighborhood is going to think you're crazy. You're making yourself look like a bitter old woman. I'd rather be a bitter old woman with boundaries than a pushover who lets her own child rob her blind. Goodbye, Nicole." I hung up and blocked her number. The wall was completed in mid-September. It was magnificent. 40 feet of solid concrete, slightly textured for visual interest, with proper drainage and structural support. It cost me $285,000 to build, money I didn't care about spending because every dollar was worth it. The Morrisons finished their house in late October. I drove by one evening and saw them standing in their backyard. visible to me because I was on the street, but they couldn't see anything except my wall from inside their property. Ashley was crying. Brandon was on his phone, probably calling his lawyer again for the 15th time. I felt no guilt, none. They'd bought my childhood home knowing it would be demolished. They'd never asked if the family who lived there for generations was okay with it. They'd just seen an opportunity and taken it. And now they got to live in a beautiful modern house with no western view and a constant reminder that actions have consequences. Patricia thought the wall was the best thing I'd ever done. Mom, I'm so proud of you. You didn't just roll over and accept what Nicole did. You fought back in the most perfect way possible. My friends were divided. Some thought it was brilliant. Others thought it was excessive. I didn't care. This wasn't about public opinion. This was about me drawing a line in the sand, or in this case, in concrete, and saying, this far and no further. I eventually sold the empty lot with the wall to a developer for $450,000. Made a small profit, actually. The developer thought the wall was hilarious and left it standing when he built a small apartment building on the lot. To this day, that wall stands there, blocking the Morrisons' view, a 40-foot monument to the importance of treating people with respect and consideration. As for Nicole, we haven't spoken since that phone call. She sent me a certified letter through her lawyer, formally splitting all remaining assets from my parents' estate and making it clear she wanted no further contact. I signed the papers without hesitation. Patricia is my only daughter now. Nicole is a stranger who happens to share my DNA. The Morrisons tried to sell their house 8 months after moving in. The listing mentioned limited western views and was on the market for over a year before they finally accepted an offer $300,000 below what they'd invested in the property and construction. I heard through the neighborhood gossip that they divorced about a year after that. I don't know if the wall contributed to the stress in their marriage, but I imagine living in a house that never turned out the way you envisioned, it might cause some friction. I bought myself a beautiful condo, modern, easy to maintain, with huge windows and mountain views, just like Nicole had suggested I should get. But I bought it on my own terms, with my own money when I was ready. I filled it with the belongings I'd rescued from that storage unit, with my mother's china and my wedding album and Thomas's ashes, now in a place of honor on my mantle. I'm 63 now, 2 years past the destruction of my childhood home. I've done a lot of therapy, a lot of healing, and a lot of reflection. I've learned that you can love someone and still need to protect yourself from them. I've learned that forgiveness doesn't mean allowing people back into your life who've proven they'll hurt you. I've learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away. Do I miss Nicole? I miss the daughter I thought I had. I mourn the relationship I believed we had, but I don't miss the person she actually is. Someone capable of such calculated cruelty, such complete disregard for her mother's heart. Do I regret the wall? Not for a single second. That wall represents my refusal to be a victim, my insistence on boundaries, my determination to live life on my own terms, despite devastating betrayal. Some people think what I did was petty revenge. They're wrong. Revenge is about hurting someone because they hurt you. What I did was about establishing consequences, about teaching a lesson, about making sure that the people who benefited from my daughter's cruelty understood that their actions affected real people with real feelings. The Morrisons got their dream house, just not with a dream view. Nicole got her $600,000, just not her mother's continued presence in her life. And I got my self-respect back, along with the knowledge that I'm stronger than I ever knew. If you're going through something similar, if someone you love has betrayed you in a way that feels impossible to overcome, I want you to know this. You will survive it. It will change you. How could it not? But you get to decide what kind of change it creates. You can let it make you bitter and small, or you can let it make you strong and clear about your boundaries. I chose strength. I chose boundaries. I chose a 40-foot concrete wall that says, I matter. My feelings matter.
My history matters, and I will not allow anyone, not even my own child, to treat me as if I don't. That's my story. That's what happened when my daughter secretly sold my childhood home while I was on vacation, and that's how I responded. Some people will judge me for it. That's fine. They didn't lose what I lost. They didn't.
Feel what I felt. They're not the ones who have to live with the consequences of my choices. I am. And I'm living with them just fine. Better than fine, actually. I'm living with clarity, with self-respect, and with the solid knowledge that I'll never again confuse love with tolerance for mistreatment. Be strong. Draw your boundaries. Build your walls, metaphorical or literal, and never, ever let anyone convince you that standing up for yourself is somehow wrong. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone out there who needs to hear it. And remember, it's never too late to fight back, to reclaim your power, and to build something that says, I matter. Because you do. We all do.